Do you find this man attractive? Or this man? Or this man? Well, guess what? They have one thing in common. You know what that is? Murder! Jail! Jail time! Hollywood, for whatever the frig reason, has this disgusting reputation of glamorizing murderers and making them ridiculously attractive and sexy, when in actuality, most murderers look like this. But can Hollywood have murderers look like that? No, absolutely not. You know why? Because sex sells, baby! Yeah! We have to make these guys look hot as shit, or else people won't watch our show. So what does Hollywood do? They cast a fine-ass man to play this murdering psychopath. And lo and behold, you now have a popular TV show or movie. I really want to talk today more about the different types of murdering psychopath that we see represented on our screen. Because there is different levels to this, and I do feel like there's maybe the said few examples where this actually makes sense to cast a hot person. But for the most part, no. For the most part, I don't get it. I think it's pretty freaking weird. I think Hollywood needs to start making these guys look grosser. Even if you cast an attractive actor, make him look grosser. Get really up in the prosthetics and shit to make him look nasty. But the three different types of representation are the real life murdering psychopath being depicted on screen, a fictional murdering psychopath but gets sympathy card, and then a full-on fictional murdering psychopath. The first one here I have as the example none other than, of course, Dahmer!
No! Please stop! What are you doing? Oh god, no, please! No!
The monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer. Monster. It's just such a weird name, hey. Obviously, there's more examples other than this. There's the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie. And then most recently, they casted Charlie Hunnam as Ed Gein.
No!
They casted this man. This man right here is the guy who was using skin as lamps. If you haven't noticed, there is a little bit of a through line here for these sexy actors portraying real life killers, and that is Ryan Murphy. I could really get into Ryan Murphy, but this isn't the video for that. I am mostly just gonna get into the example of Dahmer because this was really the start, in my humble opinion, of when it started to become extra concerning. Because at the very least with the Ted Bundy one with Zac Efron, they didn't do too much to glorify him. This one, however, yeah. What the shit? The way that Ryan Murphy is so far up these serial killers' asses, I actually cannot. With this show already, with the casting of Evan Peters, that was flag number one, because he previously portrayed a school and rapist in American Horror Story. And you know what came out of that? A bunch of Tumblr-ass edits and Tumblr-ass simping people who were like, oh my god, Tate Langton. Thankfully, he is a fictional character. He played a fictional guy in that show, but still concerning. That's just the spell of Evan Peters, really, because he is that attractive. He is that guy. However, now portraying this real life monster of a killer who did so many atrocious things, that was concerning to me. Immediately, I was side-eyeing Ryan Murphy, like, you're really gonna do this again? You're really testing my patience again? With Evan Peters, yes, he was phenomenal. Yes, I agree, he did a really good job with his acting abilities here. However, just him alone is concerning, because I already knew. I'm like, people are still gonna make simp edits over him portraying this real life monstrosity of a killer. And you know what happened? It did. There's so many thirst trap edits and the memes, the TikToks, all that bullshit that came off of this show. And I thought to myself, yes, well, yes. What else did you expect? It's freaking Evan Peters. And I don't blame these people for making these simp edits, because one, Evan Peters, like we discussed, is Evan Peters. Yes. The way that this TV show was shot and the way that he is framed in some of these shots is quite sexualizing. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a scene in here that to me was just super unnecessary, and Maybe that was how it went down in real life. I don't know. Who knows? Because the tragedy happened. He unfortunately killed a hitchhiker, and they have this whole workout scene together when they're working out, and then it leads to, unfortunately, the eventual killing of this man. But it's like, was that necessary, you know? Because you have these guys getting all hot and sweaty, and yeah, maybe it's showing how Dahmer, you know, obviously has his attraction towards men and everything, but it's just, you know. And then there's another scene of him privately working out, and us just getting like these full shots of his abs and everything shirtless, and it's like, was that necessary? There's another shot of him shirtless looking in the mirror with blood that it's like, okay. And just a bunch of other shots of him shirtless doing these things. And again, you can argue, well, he would have to be shirtless so that he doesn't get the stench of stuff on his clothes and doesn't want to stain his clothes. It would just be him shirtless though. Like, what about his pants? He had his pants on. He could get his pants stained. But no, he just had to be shirtless for a bunch of these scenes. To me, definitely there was a lot of unnecessary sexualizing shots of Evan Peters on this show, and just added that much more fuel to the fire of getting people to simp over this man where they unnecessarily they shouldn't be simping over this guy. It does seem to be a Ryan Murphy trademark, because again, when I watched the Lyle and Eric Menendez one, it was even worse than this one, where with even more shots like this, unnecessary, someone's ass literally in the camera. I do know there is that clear distinction between simping over an actor versus simping over the actual guy or person that he's portraying. I understand, like, it can be fun, especially when it's a fictional character, which we'll get to, but in these cases, I deem this as not good. I deem this as unacceptable. Not to shame people, because I myself fell into this trap with the Menendez one. They casted Nick Chavez. He did his thing on that show, and I was like, I get it. Like, I get it. And when I was simping, I was like, okay, but I'm simping for Nick Chavez. But I do feel Hollywood needs to do better when it comes to portraying these real life killers, and do better with their casting, in the sense of, okay, maybe you did cast a good looking actor and it's mostly based off of his acting capabilities. You shouldn't rob someone just because they're good looking. You know, maybe he won it because he acted it really well. But then you could do a better job of making them look uglier. You could do a better job at prosthetically changing them, adding whatever you need to do to make them look disgusting. So then us as the audience are not falling into that trap of being enamored by this real life killer who actually did these atrocious things and actually left these lasting effects on these families. Do you think any of the family members who tragically had to lose a loved one at the hands of Dahmer, do you think any of them were appreciating the simp edits that were made over Dahmer? No, this is a tragedy. This is something that actually affected people, real life people. And so, again, I get it. You're making these edits most likely because of the actor, but it's the context, right? It's the context of him still portraying this real life serial killer. It's still the context of him portraying a real life human who did these monstrous things. I personally do believe Hollywood needs to do a better job at making these guys look uglier. And you could argue too with me, you could argue too saying, hey, but what if they actually were pretty good looking? What if they're trying to show how they were able to lure these people in because they were good looking and they did have a charm to them? Well, to that I say, just as this is an adaptation to a real life scenario, and it's based off of these true events, and it's actors portraying these people based off of these true events, you do have the capacity to make them look either better looking than their counterpart or worse looking than their counterpart. And unfortunately, it seems like Hollywood likes to take the latter, likes to take the route of making them better looking than their actual parts. Because I looked at Dahmer, I've seen pictures of him, and I'm like, Evan Peters is obviously way better looking. Sorry. Sorry, I think, is that fair to say? To me, I feel like you could make that choice of making them better looking for your adaptation, or you could make them uglier. And in my humble opinion, you should make them look uglier so it disturbs the audience that much more. And leaves no room for the simping, for the edits, for the thirst edit, for the memes. It leaves no room for that because we're that disturbed by this. There's that debate, right, if Hollywood should be doing these things or not to begin with, because again, you're making profit off of tragedy. So I don't know. That's a debate in itself. But if they're gonna do it, please be more mindful. All in all, this one needs to be fixed. All in all, absolutely not necessary. Don't think that when you're portraying a real life serial killer, it should be glamorized or sexualized in any way, shape, or form. This is an actual tragedy. This affected people in real life and could be already considered disrespectful to those people doing the show already. So you could at the very least be that much more mindful and try to be more respectful by actually depicting him as the full monster that he is. There's also that aspect too of sympathy and sympathizing, which I have no sympathy. You could argue, it's just showing how a monster like this is made and how they grew up to be this way, which, yes, I get that, but it also etches on the line of sympathy because during this show as well, they have moments where they show his upbringing and how that affected him into becoming who he is, and blaming the upbringing with him not wanting to be alone and having separation issues, all of that stuff, how that affected him. So I get it. Again, I get it that is usually the case of these killers, is that it is from some kind of toxic upbringing, but that also edges on the line of sympathy, and that's also just a tricky rope to walk on. Next up, we have the fictional murdering psychopath who gets sympathy card and is also weirdly glamorized and sexualized. There's a couple of these. Obviously, a lot of them do edge on being super fictional, where it's like, okay, we can suspend our sense of reality for some of these ones. Like, if they're vampires, right? Okay, well, this is totally fictional, so whatever. He sucked a lot of people's blood and drained them of their blood when he was younger, but he's trying to change and be vegetarian and suck animal blood instead. He's changing, you guys. It's okay. But those ones, I can see more of a pass because of how fictional it is. In some cases, and in one special case in particular that I want to go through, it is set somewhat in reality and more grounded, yet we kind of simp a little bit over this man, and we are kind of meant to with what the show is doing. Put me in your box. Put me in your little box. Spoiler, I'm talking about Joe Goldberg. So if you haven't watched the series You, it's basically this man who gets obsessed over a woman every season, and through his obsession with wanting to be with her, he goes through a bunch of bullshit to isolate her so that she only falls in love with him, and anybody who gets in his way is because he just wants her for himself, baby. Yeah, because that's true love right there. So for this show, I did find it really interesting because while I watched all 5 seasons, I loved the concept. I thought it was very interesting considering how rooted in reality it is and how this could actually happen, unfortunately. It's interesting with the way the show portrays Joe and the way his character develops throughout the show and the very inconsistent nature of his character, and that I feel like the show itself didn't really know what to do with him until the very end. And even at the very end, it was kind of like, okay, but if you look at these other seasons though, I feel like they themselves kind of realized they up a little bit in some of their seasons and how they portrayed Joe and the message that they want to actually say by the end of the show. And I do appreciate that they tried to right their wrong in the last season and the way it ends, but leading up to that, kind of iffy.
Hello. You?
With Joe in the first season, he is portrayed pretty nasty. We are in his first person POV, so that also makes it hard for the audience to not weirdly root for him. Like, again, I personally wasn't rooting for him this whole time. I wanted him to go to jail by the end of all of this, and so when he did, I was happy. But I can see why people would weirdly root for him, because he is our main character that we're following and that we're in his head this entire time. So that's already a choice, but I do believe from the author too, because this is based off of a book series, that was her intention though, was that this is an exploration into the psyche of a psychotic man like this. I appreciate it from the author's point of view, but again, I don't know how much they strayed away from her work versus the TV show in the later season. But for the first season, I do think they did a good job based off of her book and depicting it on the show. To really showcase this too, he first kills off pretty innocent people. And when I say innocent, I mean in the sense of like they're not evil themselves and they're not murdering people themselves. They're not doing anything that's beyond the law that they could go to jail for. They're not the best people, but they don't deserve to die. Us as the audience, we're seeing like, okay, he's killing these people unjustifiably so, just so that he can get with this girl. But then we get into season 2. And in season 2 is when it really starts to shift, and when us as the audience, I can see why people start to kind of root for him instead. And it seems like the show itself wants you to root for him and see him as not so much of a bad guy, but more like a Dexter type where he's killing bad people. And so he himself maybe can be seen as like this chaotic good in killing these bad people. We're kind of left to root for Joe. Even though he has already killed people unjustifiably so, he's starting to kill people that are bad people now. And then they start to shift the psycho more onto Love, who ended up being his love interest in the second season. They get together, they stay together in season 3, and then by the end of season 3, he ends up killing her. R.I.P. Love. She's the one that we start feeling more, oh, we should be scared of Love because she's killing these nice people now. We're supposed to be pointing the finger at Love now. So that's weird because, again, this show started off as Joe, and Joe being the one that's the crazy one and the psycho one. But now the show is weirdly glamorizing him and making him out to be the good guy after all these seasons. And then come season 4, we have this, in my humble opinion, unnecessary plotline. I thought that they really fumbled here. I didn't understand why they did this. I think they were just bored and lazy and didn't know what the else to do. Now this whole season where there's this killer on the loose and Joe's trying to find out who the killer is because a bunch of rich people around him start dying. And this is, again, back to where it's more unjustifiably so. People that are getting killed that aren't bad guys. So they kind of start going back to that route from season 1. But then we find out it's Joe, obviously. But then he's disassociated himself from it because he has a disorder. A split personality disorder. Yeah. When he comes to realize that he's the one killing all these people, he didn't even know he was doing it because of his supposed split personality. But then we never come back to that in season 5, and then all these past seasons he never had that. So it was just, in my humble opinion, it was just weird. I'm like, where the did this come from? Like, is that how it works? Is that how it works, that you have this disorder for this chunk of period of time and then it just goes away without therapy, without any doctor looking at you and trying to help you, without any medication? All this to say, majority of this show has it so that we're supposed to be weirdly rooting for this serial killer. And while it's a fictional male, it's just bizarre because by the time we get to season 5, the writers are like, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't have done all of that because, yeah, at the end of the day, Joe is a killer and he is killing all these people just to get with women that he's obsessed with, and he's stalking these women, which is also unhealthy, and trying to isolate them, which is also unhealthy. So, I don't know. Again, I appreciate by the end that they did fix it the best to their abilities, but it was definitely a choice to have him weirdly be our main anti-hero type guy and frame him in that anti-hero type way for the majority of the show. And by the end too, there's this ending shot of him getting fan mail in jail and how real life killers do get fan mail in jail, and that he says, maybe I'm not the problem, maybe it's you. And yeah,
Maybe we have a problem as a society.
Because there was people by the end of the show being like, oh, well, why did he get jail? I didn't want him to get jail. He should have just been free, or he should have found someone. And it's like, that's the whole point. Yeah, that's the whole point, because you weirdly made us root for Joe for 3 seasons, and then made him bad again in the last season. But like, he's always been bad, but you just weirdly portrayed him as this anti-hero type guy. It's just, anyway. The other part again of like the whole sexualizing, glamorizing is the fact, yeah, Pim Badgley is obviously a good-looking guy. We also have the fact that he is in this romantic setting, this weirdly romantic setting, where he's trying to romance a woman each season. So again, like, that weirdly might turn some people towards Joe, specifically women who want a man who is obsessed with them, but hopefully not that obsessed. And Badgley doing a bunch of these love scenes and looking all hot and whatever during these love scenes. So again, it is very much glamorizing the serial killer character. The way he's shirtless sometimes, like all of these things, it's like, okay, we get it. He's a hot guy. Oh yeah, and then the sympathy card. Oh my god, I didn't even talk about the sympathy card. And they show for his backstory, him with his father figure, and that he got dumped by his mom when he was a boy, and then saw her raising another kid. That is traumatizing, but damn. And then he grew up with this toxic male figure in his life that was basically like a father figure, bookstore owner guy, and taught him the discipline of the box and how the box teaches you a lesson. We understand why he became the way he is, and all the mommy issues, abandonment issues, why he's probably so obsessed with women and looking for that mother care type in his partner, but it still plays on that sympathy card to see his tragic backstory. And oh my god, poor Joe. Also, that doesn't give you a right to freaking kill people just to get a girl. Take her panties and steal her panties and her and her tampons. Overall, I thought that this was very poorly done. I think they definitely should have done a better job in this case of making it very apparent to the audience that you should not be rooting for Joe. This guy is a serial killer. He is a serial killer, guys. I don't care what his intentions are. He's killing people to get with women and isolating these women, killing people that are close to them. Even if they're a toxic person, he's still killing them. And it mostly comes to fictional murdering men. Like I said, if it's vampire, if it's some kind of, fantasy, I feel like does get a pass because it's just so far away from reality that you can just escape. It's pure escapism. The point of Joe and in the point of you, that very much was a case where they could have done better with making us, the audience, feel disgusted by Joe. But again, the appeal to actually watch the show, it's like, oh, people aren't going to watch the show if we show our main character being a bad guy the whole time. But I would have. I weirdly tried to downplay the shit that he was doing by making him kill bad people, but then it's like, you're still killing people. And lastly here, we have fictional psychopath with no empathy, no sympathy, none of that bullshit, just a pure hot psychopath. And in this case, the best example, and this one is an example of where it was intentional, this was smart writing, this is based off of a book as well, and that is American Psycho, Patrick Bateman. Ooh! This one is how you do it, because you are actually asking your audience to find this guy attractive. You're actually doing that intentionally to make your point of this story. Y'all haven't watched this movie, and if you're unaware of what this is, it's basically a psychopath named Patrick Bateman who is rich, good looking, and rich. But this being the best example simply being because that is the point of the story. He's obsessed with his looks. That's why we get that whole intro sequence, the iconic intro sequence of him doing his face mask, him doing his push-ups. He's obsessed with his looks, okay? And for other people to be good looking as well. Like, he thinks anyone who's poor is the lowest of the low and is trash, hence why he ends up brutally killing a homeless man, spoiler alert. It really explores the psyche, how someone that is in such power and has so much going for them would be a psychopath, or would be a perfect example of a psychopath. It shows to the audience how easy it would be for him to get away with shit like this because of everything he has going for him. He's good looking, he's powerful, he's rich. So obviously he would be able to lure people into his apartment. He would be able to lure women, lure whoever he wanted, and kill whoever he wanted just like that, and get rid of the body just like that because he's rich and powerful and good looking. So explore misogyny and how society and culture treats women and how they view women as well, because he uses these women as these objects. Very uncomfortable. That's probably like the one scene that's so uncomfortable to me. And then just throws them away. And then literally kills them. You are no use as a woman to me unless you're a toy. And once I do the thing that I wanted to do, you are disposable. You are literally that disposable that I'm gonna kill you. Again, really job, really crazy movie, crazy story. Christian Bale absolutely killed it. But that was intentional. Him being casted was intentional. For being good looking, for being charming, being able to act all that out was absolutely intentional and the point of the movie. So in that case, that is well done. It's also a commentary too on just society and culture and, again, American Psycho, America, and looking that in the face. Patrick Bateman represents essentially the ugly parts of society of America. Represents the psychotic nature of those in power and how destructive they can be. Literally killing, him literally being a murderer, a serial killer in this film, but being that representation of them destroying everything in their wake. How they view women, how they view the competition, how they view other people, how they view society that is lower than them. Just a lot to do with America and the dark parts of America and people in higher power. So just brilliant. There's no sympathy for him. We get absolutely no backstory of how he grew to be this way, how he is this way, just absolutely none of that. So we don't sympathize with him as the audience. We just see him as a psychopath. Interesting contrast between this also being in his POV versus the Joe Goldberg POV. We get his POV, but we very much know how psychotic he is, and that everything that he's saying in his POV is psychotic. It did a really good job of letting the audience into his psyche and his nature, but us knowing very well and making it very evident to us that no, none of this justifies what he's doing. Everything that he's doing is insane. It's cracked behavior. Should not be rooting for this guy. He says some crazy shit at the beginning of the film immediately.
Ugly bitch. I want to stab you to death and play around with your blood.
So you know very early on, okay, yeah, this is a psycho. This is a crazy guy. I don't agree with anything he's saying, but I'm going to keep watching because what the hell. Really great portrayal, really great adaptation in my opinion. I know they're thinking about doing a remake, but I don't think that's necessary because I do believe that this movie portrayed it well, portrayed the themes and messagings well. This is how you do it because it's purposeful, it's intentional. That's overall what I had to say about these levels of psycho men and the glamorization of these psycho men. How it can be done well and intentional in the sense of American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, but how it can also be done, unfortunately, not very well and actually ends up playing with the audience in a wrong way where people actually do start to sympathize for this character or start to root for this character where they shouldn't be. And especially should not be glamorized when it's based off of a real life killer and real life events. Absolutely should not. That's absolutely a no. I stand by that. I think it's disgusting when this happens. Stop doing that. I don't know if there's any other examples of when it's done well, of when it's done intentionally. I think for sure American Psycho is the best example I could give, but if there's any other ones, please feel free to add that in the comments. I wish Hollywood could do better instead of glamorizing these freaking killers. Like, they kill, you guys. They murder people, you guys. Like, why is that sexy? It shouldn't be sexy. Oh, someone's home. Babs? Hi. Hi. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Mwah.